Good evening, and welcome to Holy Week worship. Each night this week, we're walking through parts of Jesus' last week on earth, encountering the story in ways that invite us to consider our place in the divine drama of redemption. In preparation for tonight's experience, you'll want a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and you'll need a bowl of water. Come with us as we enter into the temple in Jerusalem with Jesus. He sees how greedy people with corrupt hearts are abusing the scriptures that call for God's people to make sacrificial offerings of themselves. He sees how they rob and cheat the poor, exploiting their faith through complex systems of exchanging currencies. John tells us that he made a whip of ropes and chased them out of the temple, including the cattle and the sheep. He scattered the coins and overturned the tables of those who exchanged currencies. He said to the dove sellers, "Get those things out of here. You're making my Father's house into a den of thieves." Tonight we hear this story from the perspective of a widow who witnessed these events and pondered their meaning.
I was there the day that Jesus walked into the temple. He just stood there at first. It almost looked like disbelief, but then I saw it. I saw the fire in his eyes. I'd come from Galilee to a place where God said he'd meet us. Did it feel like a scam? Yeah. I'd never been able to afford a lamb for my sacrifice, so I had to settle for one of those overpriced pigeons. As a young wife and mother, there's a name you never expect to be called: widow. I didn't realize how safe I felt with my husband around until he was gone. It was like being exposed on every side with nothing between my babies and a world of vipers but me, just me. So I stood there that day at the temple and watched as Jesus grabbed the whip and drove the businessmen out of the temple and poured the money on the ground. But more than that, something in the expression on his face, I recognized it. He swung that whip like a viper threatening his kids. He told them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up." It took me 3 years to figure out what he meant. Slow learner? He wasn't talking about the building. That was a place where dishonest men put their grimy fingerprints on God's glory, and they defiled the intimate process of worshiping him. That day wasn't about destruction, though. It was about hope, because now knowing God is all about Jesus. When I look back on that day at the temple, I remember what Jesus did and how he did it. It felt like being rescued. Life can still be brutal. My kids' appetites are still growing. I still cry a lot. But now he made me a place to be still, where rest and trust meet right at God's feet. And the price of that access, it's paid because of Jesus. He conquered death, and that's how I make it through life.
As we reflect on the story of the widow in the temple, she really noticed that Jesus brought this place of hope, a place of hope for her as a young mother raising her children. And so tonight we're going to do some praying, let's say, a little experience around hope that blossoms. So you're going to need your squares of paper that you have and your pen or your marker. And I'm going to tell you, I use Sharpies a lot because it makes a bold statement, and it really makes me feel like I'm making a commitment to something. So if you've got a Sharpie laying around, you may want to grab that. And then also you need a bowl, or like I have a casserole dish that's got water in it. So what you're going to do is you're going to write on these squares of paper. And let me help you out. I've got a few questions that I think you might want to ponder while you're kind of praying. These are just ideas that can help you think about the story and think about how you think and feel about Jesus. So here's a question for you. In what ways have you been rescued? What do you hold on to when you're afraid? What do you hope for? So some pretty deep questions. I just want you to take some time and write on your paper. And when you're ready, you're going to fold the corners of your paper up. Okay? So this is one of mine where I wrote friends, family, prayer, and strangers. Those are some of the ways that I've been rescued. So you just take these little papers and you fold them up, and then when you place them into the water and they get saturated, you won't have time to watch mine, they'll begin to blossom and open up. And so it's a way to send hope up to the heavens. Like you can just kind of see it happening. So just take some time and really think about those questions. And if you need to pause the video, you can pause the video to do that. And then PT will come back with some prayer for you.
Will you pray with me? Merciful God, we come to you filled with grief. We have lost loved ones. We know many who have suffered. We struggle with isolation and loneliness. We confess that when we are fearful, we try to tighten our grip on our lives, holding on for dear life by trying to control our circumstances. Meet us in our grief and fear. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Give us the grace to be still, to place our worries and fears before you, in this place where rest and trust meet. Open our hearts to hope again. Amen.